Dawn, 6:30. I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss contracts. Can I have a second? Second by Bob. All in favor? Shows 6 in favor and then 1 absent. So we're going into executive session. Welcome to the Iroquois Central School District Board of Education meeting. There are 2 recognitions of guest periods, one for agenda-related items and one for other topics. Please refrain from personal-related comments and address those to the appropriate administrator. To speak, fill out the form and submit it to the district clerk. Public comment is limited to 15 minutes total, with each speaker allowed up to 3 minutes. This meeting is held in public rather than a public meeting, and while we will not engage in dialogue tonight, we are listening. This meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be posted online. Now we'd like to welcome from Rural Primary, from UPK, Parker and Mason up to recite the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we will have the high school report on the polar plunge from students Evie, Maddie, Ethan, and Brad.
Good evening, everybody. It's just my pleasure to introduce this group who's done so much good and ironically brings so much warmth to our community in the most interesting way possible by getting so many people to in December jump into the frigid waters of Lake Erie, including their principal who had the opportunity to do that over the last few years. So I've had the distinct pleasure of being able to participate in the polar plunge over the last few years and had the opportunity to do so alongside this wonderful group of people who have done so much great work raising money for Special Olympics New York. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the great leader who organizes this work, Mr. Sean Lauber, who will introduce our students who will talk about their experiences and the great work that they do to raise money and awareness for students with disabilities so they can participate in Special Olympics New York. Mr. Lauber.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Sean Lauber, high school special education teacher. Good to see everybody. We're honored to be here tonight. On behalf of the 40 unified club members in the high school, we're here to present our experience with the Western New York Polar Plunge that supports Special Olympics. I brought with me tonight Maddie, Evie, and Brad. Ethan sadly had to go home sick today, so Brad got a lot more added to his part of the presentation. So at this time, Maddie.
Good evening. I am Maddie Meskel, and thank you for inviting us to come and share with you one of our Unified Club's greatest events that we have been a part of for the last 8 years. The Special Olympics Western New York Polar Plunge is the largest of its kind in the state and is an event to not only raise funds to support Special Olympic, but to share a bond between individuals with and without intellectual and developmental disabilities. The event has grown from 1 day to 3 days, and our Unified Club participates on Friday in the Cool School Challenge, which is for local school districts to show their support and crown the top fundraising school. This past December, Iroquois was one of the 26 districts that joined in the fun.
Now Evie will continue. Evie.
Hello, I am Evie Kent. The money that is raised at the plunge goes to Special Olympics New York, but Brad can explain that later. I'm going to let you know how Iroquois has been one of the most influential and top fundraising teams in the last 8 years. Iroquois has earned the Cool School Challenge trophy 4 of the last 8 years for being the top fundraising school, and the other 4 years we were runner-up. Last year, Iroquois raised $24,714 and overall has raised $124,700 in the last 8 years we have participated, which makes us the top earning school across the state. Last year, we had 62 students and staff participate, and each year we try to get over 100, so the challenge is already set for 2026.
Thank you. And now my friend Brad. Are you ready? Come on up, buddy. I'll stay right here now.
Okay. Hello, my name is Brad, and I participate in Special Olympics here in Western New York. The plunge is a great event because we get to hang out with our friends and jump into a very cold lake. When we get to Warden Beach, we go into a big tent to warm up, have a dance party, and then go through the wards for the top schools and students that raise the most money the last 5 years. Ethan and I have been named kings of the plunge for being the students that raised the most money, and we got to lead all the students down to the lake, carrying the Special Olympics towards the money raised helps support people like me, Ethan, Luke, Jack, and others in Special Olympics. Sports like football, basketball, soccer, and bocce. In our area, it's also helped me travel in Oklahoma this summer to play in Special Olympics USA softball tournament, which was a lot of fun for me and my friends. Thank you for your contributed for the Polar Plunge and Special Olympics.
Awesome, Brad. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
That's why 3 years ago I picked Brad to go with us to Washington, D.C. to talk to all the congressmen. The Polar Plunge, folks, is just one aspect, and thank you for allowing us to talk to you about that. But the unified program itself has grown dramatically. I know the last time we came with a group of students about 4 years ago to talk about our goals, and the great part is we continue to expand them. We are doing proposals, which you will be getting shortly, about formally making our K through 12 program and being one of the only in the state. So we will have programming in the primary, Wales Primary, the 4-5 intermediate building, and proposing a new start of a modified basketball program in the middle school. And again, we'll be one of the first in the state to do that. So thank you very much, school board, superintendent, everyone, for all the great support for our unified kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Sean.
I just wanted to thank you and thank all you guys that participate in everything, but I remember when we first started talking about this 10 years ago, I don't know, and what you've done and grown it. I appreciate you being the right person for the job. I know we had conversations about that, and just thank you for taking that on for Iroquois, for the students, because you guys are lucky to have him, and more importantly, he's lucky to have you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. Oh, by the way, I did bring the banner. We're the first school in the state to actually earn state banner recognition as well. It just came out in November, and I brought it along because the kids at our bowling match today, we took a group picture, so it'll be coming out on Facebook that we won that one too. So
Thank you.
all right, guys, thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Now we move to a board discussion news worth sharing and a presentation by Dr. Dudek and Pete Dodmeyer on data.
And thank you, Dr. Dudek, Mary Jo, for coming back and you know, working with the new guy.
Hi, everyone. You should have received the booklet on the Regents and the 3 through 8 data already. And this presentation is just a quick, rather than showing you 100 and something slides, putting all of the information together in just a few slides. So if you have any questions, feel free to just ask. Okay. So first of all, the Regents exams and the 3 through 8 exams, and I'm really only speaking to the Regents exams in this presentation today, and as well as Pete, sorry. These are exit exams. And so they occur at the end of the year, and people naturally say, well, what good is the data if it comes at the end of the year? However, the exit exams, or the Regents exams, really play an important role in our instruction and our curriculum and the opportunities that our students receive. At the end of every Regents exam, we're a school district that scans their own scan sheets. That means we get our results right away. And by the second week of July, we can actually start downloading item analyses of the data. And that's really important because that helps our teachers determine gaps and overlaps in the curriculum and in their instruction. It also helps us identify our students who are still in need of assistance. Maybe they scored lower than they wanted or didn't reach proficiency. So that allows us to gain that information. Additionally, when I was in the position and now when Pete's in the position, he will be going to regional meetings, and our department chairs go to regional meetings where they discuss the exam results and they discuss the exam content. And that helps build our program as well, because we now have a regional approach to how and what we teach, and more importantly, how we teach. The state designs our standards, but we design our curriculum. It's important, you might have noticed that some of the exams, some of the Regents exams, only had 1 or 2 slides, and that's because they're new exams. And so what we did is we put this table in here to show you when the new exam was happening, and then exactly what data we reviewed and how many districts were included. So if you look at the biology and the earth and space, that was a brand new exam last year, and only 3 districts of the 11 that we looked at took the exam. That's why it was such a small piece of data. If you look at global history, that was done in 2019, the first year. However, we only included 2022 through 25 because of COVID. there was a huge change in the content of the assessments. Every one of those exams in the various departments were scheduled to have new exams, but then COVID hit, and that kind of put like a damper on everything. So what's included? Sorry.
I like interrupting Mary Jo just because for kicks. I don't have as
So used
many
to it.
opportunities. And as she said, she goes back to that last slide, I'm sorry. You can see, she put that together for the almost 100 pages of material. That's a lot to sift through. So let me give you some quick, easy numbers. If I was just to take the high school and say, where were we in 22, and the board picked 10 other schools to compare ourselves to, we would have averaged about 4.8, whether you used all the exams that were given or just the ones that are consistent throughout the day is 4.8. If you use all the exams, whether they're given or not, we went from 4.8 to 4.1, so we did improve. If you just take the average of the ones that were given every year, we went from 4.8 to 3.8, so that shows compared to other schools, we're doing better. Now, it doesn't mean we're doing better on exams, because if everyone did worse, we just didn't do as worse as they did. In middle school, we started off at a 5.5, and right now we're at a 6.3. And at the elementary, which is 3 through 5, we were 4.7, and now we're 3.7. If you take the district as a whole, including that middle school had 2 grades, or 1 grade, 7th in math and ELA, that seemed to be the downpour. I talked to Ross about this for their score. Overall, we're up as an average for a district. High school is up, elementary is up, middle school, it has some progress they're making. You heard that from him last time. But as a district overall, we're up in comparing to other people. So go ahead, more detail now, Mary Jo will give you. I just wanted to give you that quick summary.
I'm glad you took me back to this page, because
Did something right.
please note that if you see 2026, those are all new exams. So next year, when Pete does this, you'll have a different amount of data. You will no longer be able to do a 5-year. However, depending on the department and depending on the exam, New York State is getting rid of some of the old exams, so we'll have more school districts involved.
Not to interrupt you, Mary Jo, but,
It's fun though.
well, no, it's your fault. Just so you can clarify, when you're saying 3.8, 4.7, 5. What does that signify? Just so, because you gave the number, just so people know.
So the board picked 10 schools, we'd be the 11th. So if number 1 is considered, you had the best results, and number 11, the worst results, we were at 3.8 for the high school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what's included in the comparison? Just to remind everyone that in 2020, both the June and the August, the January 21 and the January 22 exams, all the Regents exams were canceled due to COVID. There were partial Regents exams offered in June of 2021 and August of 2021, and that's because New York State had to apply for a waiver to the U.S. Department of Education, and it was denied. So what they had to do was they had to hold the exams, but during those years, our students were given the opportunity of not needing to take it, just to participate in it. Then in June of 2022, the U.S. History and Government exam was canceled. If you can remember, unfortunately, there was an incident at a supermarket in May of 2022, and there was a question on that exam that the state feared would trigger a negative response among the kids. So they canceled that exam. So all the students all the students enrolled in these classes during the administration were given exemptions. Okay. All right. Oh, and I just included from the New York State report card site on the right-hand side their explanation of being careful how to look at the data, because there were different numbers of students and different numbers of schools participating, okay? Pete?
All right, so you have pretty comprehensive booklets with the detailed information and breakdown of each of the exams and the comparisons. This is a chart that summarizes it, and I'm going to try to summarize that and add a few details along the way. So you can read through that, but ELA, the thing I think we'd want to highlight is that there's consistent high performance in ELA. The really cool thing is we just did a January assessment, and our students achieved a 97% proficiency rate with 82% mastery. So if you take that number and you look at it in the comparison numbers to the other districts in here, we would be number one. So very proud of our students' and teachers' performance on that most recent ELA assessment. This is one where there'll be a new exam in June of 2026. The good thing is we administer in January, so that will give us time between now and next January to really learn the exam and prepare our students well for it. In math, algebra, we're 2 years into a new exam, and over those 2 years, we've improved by 10% in proficiency and 7% in mastery, so we're on the right track there as well. Algebra 2 has shown steady improvement since 2022. Overall, we've had an increase in 10% mastery and 23% in proficiency, so we're on the right track in all those areas. Geometry, biology, and earth science were all new exams administered in June of 2025. The good news is we looked at not only the comparisons with other districts, which in some cases are minimal because not everybody has adopted the new exam yet, but even in looking at our prior proficiency rates, they were pretty consistent. So the exams that we had known and done for years, we compared pretty consistently in our proficiency rates with how we did on the new exam. So that's a good sign. I think for bio, for instance, we only had a 3-district comparison, but we achieved the highest mastery rate in biology this past year too. I think our task there is to look at our solid proficiency rates and start to look at, continuing to improve there, but really now starting to hone in as we learn the exams on mastery rates and bringing those up as well.
Pete, I have a question.
Sure.
So I've heard that we're a district that is one of the early adopters of new tests, which I'm wondering, is there any benefit in doing that? Just because they're earth science specifically, I can relate to, just because it seemed like it's the first time we're seeing the test. A lot of people may be struggling with it as far as what's on it versus what was taught. So what's the benefit of being an early adopter of a new test?
Okay.
So it's a multifaceted piece. When it comes to the science, the earth and space and the biology, we actually began preparing for that in 2015, because remember, during COVID, we were supposed to have these exams during those COVID years. So the standards actually began to change and be modified. We began to change our curriculum, and the benefit of taking those exams early is because our teachers were already teaching that in those standard areas. They were doing investigation versus preparing for multiple choice. Same with any of the other exams. You've heard me time and time again talk about the intensive reading, the writing that's involved. Our teachers, and especially our department chairs, take great pride in getting our kids prepared. Now, the ELA exam is the one exception in my 14 years here that I had. ELA was scheduled, or actually the ELA new exam was given in January, but we decided not to do that one. And the reason why is because the materials coming from the state to help the teachers get prepared and prepare the students were being held back. Held back in such a way that we're like, no, we're not, it's not fair. But we believe so strongly in our teachers, in our curriculum, and in our students, that the benefit is that we need to jump on the bandwagon. For example, the biology. had we not had that, participated in that, we would have actually been teaching our kids two different curricula to get prepared for one exam, because the old exam and the new exam.
Okay.
So we just want to make it a clean break. And we believe that our curriculum, our teachers, our kids are that strong that they can handle it.
Okay.
And does it also make sense that, like, the future's coming? So
Yeah.
waiting for it doesn't really.
It doesn't
It just puts you,
help.
each time you wait, it puts you farther behind.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'll continue on. So chemistry and physics, we know are new exams coming in June of 2026. But historically, again, we've shown improvement in chemistry up to 83% proficient in 2025, consistent in our mastery rates. And physics, we've also, in the comparison data that you can see, outperformed the median score of districts in that group of 11. Social studies, global history, the Regents exam, we've performed very well historically in that. 98% of students were proficient in 2025. That puts us as the #1 group in the comparison districts, and our mastery rates are steady. Same for U.S. history, 91% proficient in 2025, which puts us in the top 4, and we've seen steady improvement in the mastery rates in both of these areas. That's it for me. Any questions about this before we slide on?
So, weird question. Why do you picture like that, just so people at home can
Okay, why do we teach to the test? Just to show that our systems are the latest, the most updated, most current? Is that the biggest reason we go
I
and
think-
drive to that?
We teach to the standards, the New York State standards, which is, what is established is the skills and content our students are responsible for mastering by the time they graduate from a New York State public school. The test is, or the assessment is a measure of how students are performing in each of those standards. So the test is the measure, we're teaching to the standards.
Just curious.
Yeah, and it's a good way, when we talk about this, even with 3 through 8 assessments, and the value of people participating in those, it really is a good way for us to understand how we're doing with our instructional program. So if our charge is to prepare students as, New York State public school students by helping them to master the standards in each of these areas, we want to know how we're doing. The best way to know that right now is through the Regents exam. And similarly in 3 through 8 testing, that's the best way for us to assess how we're doing with instruction for our 3 through 8 students.
So Pete, basically, like you say, you're teaching the standard, but the test lets you know whether it's working or not.
Yeah, I mean, when Mary Jo talked about item analysis, that is so valuable because what it'll do for you is generate an entire report on how individual students or the entire grade level performed on the assessment broken down by standard. So we can actually go in pretty surgically and see, we were great here, but there's room for improvement here, and we can adjust our instruction accordingly for the next year then.
And that data, I believe, was recently made more readily available for teachers, which should be
Yeah, it's
huge.
valuable. So our department chairs have always done a great job with getting their hands on the data and disaggregating it and working through it with their teams. But recently, we've been able to work with the data warehouse to make the data available to our classroom teachers 3 through 8 too. So what they can do is go in and look at the performance, last year's performance on the assessment, and see how their students did in certain standard areas and adjust their instruction now for their current students. They can also go in and look at how their current students performed on last year's exam and see where there's areas of strength and weakness that they can incorporate into their instruction too.
So high school teachers had that before, but 3
High
through 8
school,
didn't?
they didn't necessarily have the individual access, but they worked through their department chairs on it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So what happened would be the assistant principals or myself would download that data, and we would actually do it for 3 through 8 and the Regents exams. But what's nice now is that we were able to create individual accounts for any teacher whose class ended in an end-of-the-year exam, and they can now access that information. So I know at the middle school, Ross and Sam Ping and Renee. Sam Ping is our BOCE's tech person. They have had an opportunity to sit with all of the teachers who had those end of the year exams last year and go through it. The downside with 3 through 8 is that the data are often not available until October or November of the following year. Where Regents exams, we can get relatively easy, 3 through 8, not so much. And I know it's just been common practice, at least for the 14 years I was here, that the Regents teachers did it automatically. Every year we would sit and we would talk.
That helps, thanks.
This one?
That's me.
Yep.
Both Pete and I are going to cover this, but just a few things on what areas still need attention. Quite honestly, I don't think these areas are ever going to go away because we can always improve upon them. I'm sorry, I'm retired, but I still say we.
That's okay.
The district adopted a policy and a belief of all means all. And our goal is for 100% of our students to at least reach proficiency, if not mastery. What we're really been concentrating on is our Tier 1 instruction. The strategies we use to make sure that the strategies that are being used in the classroom make sense and have a high effect size or high probability of improving our students' success. And when we do that, we actually improve our instructor efficacy, where our teachers' confidence grows in knowing that, okay, I've got a classroom of 12 people here, but there are a couple of you who are having difficulty. But I can pinpoint on the fly what the difficulty is, and I can modify or I can add to and address the situation, hopefully catch you guys up within the class. If you remember in the previous table, in 2019, Global History took their first exam. And it's always difficult with a new exam because historically what we see is generally a decrease in mastery. The kids still do well proficiency-wise, but the mastery decreases. If I could say there's one thing that all of our teachers are doing is following what the Global One teachers did back in 2019. That means they started, and it's really grown in the high school over the years, explicitly teaching the vocabulary not of just the content, but of the assessments. They are working towards increasing the amount and length of reading to build stamina because this fits into the work that is being done at the lower level grades. So you all have heard the presentations of K through 8. We're really working on fluency. What needs to also be worked on, and I know that they are, is explicitly teaching writing. So students need to be able to compare and contrast, extrapolate relevant information from pages of text. Difficult text. I mean, when we're talking Global One, we're talking Old English. It's difficult, it's high level. And also recognize bias in the pieces that they're reading so that they can treat them fairly. I can honestly say that there isn't one teacher or one educator in this district who doesn't strive to improve each year, not for any ranking or rating, but mainly because we want our students to have the best opportunities available to them. Want to add anything?
I'll jump in on the next one.
Okay.
I do, sorry, I stole it. So that, Mary Jo talks about areas that we're still working on and need attention, and really then the next thing is what are we doing about it? And that's where this last slide takes us. So things that we're working on, continued PD in a few different areas and developing our capacity, both as building leaders and district leaders and teachers. So the first thing really relates to student engagement and teacher efficacy. Our building leaders and teachers have done a great job learning about, modeling, supporting, practicing instructional strategies that are research-based and yield a high effect size, meaning they have a great impact positively on student learning. That's come through work we've done with learning intentions and success criteria across K through 12, work we're doing on vocabulary instruction and strategies to promote oral reading. Next week, we'll have Angie Hanlon here spending the week with us, visiting each of the buildings, working with some staff in small groups, and working with us, building administrators, and with all of our teachers on our staff development day to continue to move forward with that work. Other work that we were doing around student engagement and teacher efficacy, Mary Jo mentioned some of the consortium work we do in partnership with BOCES and cooperating districts. One of those involves New York Inspires, which is, as you're probably familiar with at this point, the state is changing some of the recommendations regarding what a graduate should look like from New York State through Portrait of a Graduate and multiple pathways to graduation. Those have been really valuable because we've been able to attend building leaders, but also teacher leaders with other districts to try to get a better understanding of what New York State's intentions are, but also talk about our own strengths, what we can build off of, and share ideas with other districts. So it's nice that we've had both building and teacher leaders involved in that. And then there's other consortium work that Mary Jo alluded to with our department chairs and teacher leaders, where they are regularly going out, learning about getting professional development, bringing it back to their teams, and providing support and professional development for their department members and colleagues in all different areas. The next big area, which you've heard a lot about, is literacy. Our goals here would be to continue to involve our TOSA, to offer in-house professional development, coaching, support in how we understand our data. She is currently offering PD sessions at all levels on explicit instruction that supports the work we just spoke about. We are looking forward to tapping even more into her expertise at the middle and high school levels, as Mary Jo mentioned, to support writing and vocabulary instruction across levels and content areas. We also have some PD lined up for building leaders. We're looking at attending a reading league training to promote consistent writing across all levels. So I think there's real power in consistent language and instruction from K through 12 and how we teach students to write and how to write for different purposes. So we're going to be starting that work. And secondary teachers, building leaders, and I will be going to PD sessions that were rescheduled for the fall on promoting reading and literacy across all content areas. So we're doing a lot of work there. Regarding data analysis, as you heard from Mary Jo, data is definitely a thing here at Iroquois. There are regular discussions of data at all levels, from our Ames Web data to assess the effectiveness of our Tier 1 program and identify students that need intervention, to the work that the middle school has done recently in looking at 3 through 8 data to evaluate their own instruction and strengthen it, and to the work that our high school and department chairs do regularly, identifying and targeting gaps with their teams to improve instruction and outcomes for kids. So that is something that we hope to continue and even grow with the work we're doing, especially with the 3 through 8 teachers and Sam Ping, our tech integrator, with their access to BOCES. Lastly, math. So math is following a little bit of a similar path that literacy has over the past few years. New York State recently released numeracy briefs making recommendations how we need to look at and improve upon math instruction across the state. We've been attending those sessions with teacher leaders through BOCES and working with other districts to understand what their thoughts are on it. In April, all of our K through 5 math teachers will be working with Lisa Stonefoot from Erie 2 BOCES, who's an expert on the briefs. We'll work on understanding what they mean for all of our teachers, K through 5, what their implications are for instruction, and then talk about how we're doing with it. Line up the work we're doing in our program and our data with what New York State is saying the direction of math needs to be moving forward. And then from that, there will be continued PD and staff development to build our knowledge base. At some point, you've heard it mentioned, we do need to be looking at a new program math-wise for K through 5. And we all are in agreement that the first step is really similar to the first step we took with a reading program, is just building people's knowledge base so that we can work together, decide on a collaborative process, and make an informed decision that supports our work. I think that's all I got. Any questions?
Yeah, just looking at some of the math data, some of it seems to be a little concerning in the middle
Which
school.
math data?
Um,
Regents or?
New York State, grade 8. I'm looking at the grade 3 through 8, the one that's 56 pages long.
Okay, 3 through
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have 2 packets.
No, that's okay.
So go ahead.
No, it just seems like, I mean, I was going to ask about the math program, and Pete, you already covered that, but just, it seems like math is struggling a little bit at some grades. So, I mean, astonishingly, like, struggling, like in the bottom, all the way to the right, you know, and remind me what the levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, because some tests have level 5, which is like the newer test, right?
Regents exams, the newer Regents exams have changed to a level 5, so they don't go by percentages anymore,
Okay,
but the levels are correlated with that. But for proficiency on a 5-point Regent scale, it's
3, 4,
level
and
3,
5.
4, or 5. 5 is match street.
Okay,
And then when you look at the 3 through 8 assessments, 3 and above, 3 and 4 are proficient, 4 is master.
okay, so 1 or 2 is, you're on the struggle
Yeah, you don't
bus.
want 1 or 2, you want 3 or above.
Okay. Well, it's encouraging just to hear that. I mean, there's been so much emphasis on literacy, which is obviously, we see the results, but, you know, we have to really kind of jump on the math wagon too. And it seems like certain grades are struggling and certain grades are doing fine, so I don't know if it's the curriculum or the,
Yeah, and those are actually the ones I highlighted in yellow.
Yeah.
And you are correct, math has 3 of them.
yeah, so,
And the one thing, if you did get a chance to look at the 3 through 8 ELA, the grade 3 and the grade 4 are showing promise in the changes that we've made, and huge promise. So I'm personally going to look forward to watching it from down south. But it's going to be very exciting because I think the changes that we've made will have a huge impact, not just in those grade levels, but working their way up.
And I think one of the things that we've already begun to work on in math 3 through 8, I know they've started this at the II, collaborating with the middle school, is making sure that we're looking at alignment too. So making sure that, you know, we're teaching skills consistently, we're overlapping when we need to, and we're building off of what they learned in the year prior. So I think a large part of our work moving forward, in addition to like really getting our head around the literacy or the numeracy briefs and getting that professional development, is going to be getting people together across grade levels to look at alignment in their curriculum too.
great, thanks.
Yep.
I have a question. So why is it better to adopt the new Regents exams and have the mastery rates decrease than just wait a year or 2 for more exams to be tested, and then you'll have the practice ones, so the grades probably wouldn't go down so much?
It's a good question. I'll try. You can jump in.
That's a great question.
So I think what happens is standards and expectations in New York State shift in different subject areas, right? And we try to do our best to make sure that we're adjusting the way we teach our students to support that. So we change the way we're teaching, and we focus on some of the content a little bit differently when that change happens. And then after that happens, at some point, the exam changes. So what we've talked about is, if we're going to need to kind of adjust the way we teach and what we focus on with our students, and it's aligned with this new exam, why would we make them take the old one? Because then you're kind of preparing them for an exam that isn't really going to exist in the long term. And the other thing that we think is good for kids, is exams have really shifted from just being able to spit back content to thinking. So I think the sooner we can get our students really thinking and like problem solving and working through difficult things rather than memorizing, the better it's going to serve them in school, but even way past school.
And would it also be fair to say, because I think it's a good question, that to take the older exam for the present or the current student may be easier, but it doesn't serve the purpose of further education.
Right.
Just so in other words, if we just want to purely chase a score for the sake of chasing a score,
Yep.
we could do the older exam. And those students taking that test would probably get better grades and may feel better. But as far as, uplifting and driving the whole system forward, it doesn't serve that purpose.
Right, and then if they're going to encounter something in that content area, that subject matter or skills associated with it down the road, whether it's later in high school at a higher level or in a post-secondary situation, they may be carrying some content that they remember, but they're not necessarily going to be carrying the skills with them if we haven't prepared
And you want to
them.
prepare for what's coming next. I just remember, visiting and going to a lot of colleges, that a lot of the colleges were saying, especially the upper level ones, that students were coming unprepared to them because they were, honestly, the college had taught antiquated methods. So if you really want to prepare the student, the pain now, not to use that word, helps them further on.
Right.
Where it's going to continue to matter, because you want to prepare them to be successful.
It's like, for me, you're hungry and there's a candy bar and there's something a little healthier. The candy bar might feel better in that moment, but if you keep doing that, it's not going to be sustaining.
And also, I think, life skills, like doing hard things first
And
is something that maybe youngsters don't appreciate.
Instant
But I
gratification,
mean,
right?
doing hard things first, nobody wants to do, including all adults, right? But that's probably one of the reasons why we would like to be first in line, although it is ridiculously painful. And the kids probably feel defeated a little bit, like, why would our teachers say, we can take the new format of the test? I know my son specifically felt a little defeated, thinking that I'm not smart enough, or I didn't study hard enough. So I think that's probably what some students struggle with, and not realizing why we want to be early adopters of a new test. So
Here's another thing that we've adopted as well as our philosophy when it comes to these new assessments. And with anything. You may not have achieved the score you wanted, but it's not about the score, it's about what you're going to do about it in the future. How are you going to make the improvements? Is there something else that you can do? Because in and of itself, that also builds integrity and stamina and a work ethic. And these are all things that are in the portrait of a graduate as well, that it's coming out through New York Inspires. New York Inspires is going to be looking at these exams in a very different way. They'll still be there, but they're going to be, it's going to look different. And so, personally, my opinion is it's better to be striving for the future than sitting in the past.
Don't both exams take the same amount of time? Like
do
when
you
you
mean?
sit down,
yeah,
they both, yeah.
the length of the exam? in terms of
Yeah,
the time
because
required?
the old ones are like 85 questions and the new ones are way smaller, and I feel like both have a decent amount of reading.
They do. I think it's the types of questions, so even when there's fewer questions, I guess what I would say is fewer questions doesn't necessarily mean less thought, and sometimes it means more thought has to go into your answers. So I think that's why you might see fewer questions but the same amount of time, is because they're really challenging you to think more and process things more and solve problems more and piece things together to make sense of it than they are just to kind of recall facts and content that you learned. So I think that's really the difference. But they are the same amount of time, and you might even see fewer questions on the new ones, but they're going to be a little bit harder to adjust to.
Okay, Mary Jo, we want to thank you for your years of service, and where you've brought the district, so thank you.
Thanks.
And, Pete, we look forward to seeing where you take us.
All right,
So,
thank you.
and just this was the, probably the last, easy one. If you want to call it easy.
These are, that's yours.
It's one way to pass the baton.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mary Jo, for coming in.
Thank you. Lucia, you're up.
So in January, every month I do a survey to all of the high school kids, well, as many as possible. I hand them a paper and say, here you go, I'll be back in 2 minutes, can you just fill this out for me? I found that's the best way to go about it, to get a decent amount of answers. So in January, it was about the student portal, and I also sent out a survey to all of the teachers, so I just shared the results with you all. Both results are very split, like almost 50-50. Whether it's a good program, not necessarily a good program or bad program, but if it fulfills its potential. So I guess we're asking if you guys would like Mr. Schofield to maybe research some new programs that maybe, so commonly in the results was maybe there could be an app that's easier to log into because people frequently get logged out of it, and to be able to reset their password and do all that, they have to like email the student support staff. And some people say that's kind of difficult. The format on the phones was commonly a response it was poor on the phones. It's difficult to navigate. So yeah.
And that's one thing with the board, why I think it's a good question to ask the board, and why I think it's a good question to ask is, our student management system, we've had it for a long time. Over the years, administration has talked about, should we change it? We talked to different individuals about it, but there's a lot of learning, experience, data, transfer, so any time, I'm sure you guys all work places, that you're going to a new system, there's a lot of pains with it. Is it worth it to do it? Are people getting the information? Is it just a convenience thing? Or more? And it's something, again, it's not a board decision whether we switch or not, but how much money we want to put towards it is, because I remember years ago, there was a program we really liked. It was double, if not triple, more than the program we selected. So there is a financial obligation there.
Well, I guess, I know that from a student point of view, the student portal is used every day. Is that a safe assumption?
Depends on the person, but most people use it pretty frequently.
Pretty frequently.
They log into it pretty frequently.
And then you have parents that should check how their students are doing, especially at the younger years. But it's not the first time that I've heard about the usability for the applications that we have for our students and our
Right.
parents. So I guess from my perspective, I would love to know, like, what the other schools are using, like what would be a good industry standard tool, what options are out there to transition, what the cost could potentially be, to give us some options to even see if it's something we would want to consider.
Yeah, so out there's typically 3, e-school, Power School, and Infinite Campus.
Okay.
I have experience with Power School because that's what my students, my kids here, my students are at home, interesting. So my children were on, and there was a feature I really liked on it because I didn't have to go on it. I got an email every Monday with my children's grades on it, and what assignments they had, what assignments they didn't have. It was a good fight every Monday night, looking at it and reviewing it with them. And eSchool does not have that feature. So that was when I found that out, I asked look into eSchool for it, and that was 5 years ago. There was a discussion that I stimulated from that. Would it be worth switching at that time? The answer was no. So that doesn't, and then you get to the price of them. Well, what would be the price to cost?
Why was the answer no? Just because of the cost?
Just because of that alone itself wasn't enough of a reason to switch. You know, because there are other things where we had our schedule set in there, our grading set in there, how it links in with all the other programs, and just the familiarity of it with our staff, that it just, you know, and I'm talking 5 years ago, so I'm trying to remember all the nuances, but of the end users, of the student support team that came back, they're the heaviest users, it's not a time to switch for it. Will there be a time sometime in, yeah, there will be definitely a sometime.
So what were the options again? So,
Infinite Campus, Power School, E-School.
okay.
I think that, I'm going to agree with Heather for a second, but I think it's a very hard conversation to have in the abstract without any information.
Right, so.
I think not saying to switch, but I think collecting the information would be a good thing. Just for no other reason, it says that, you know, it's good on laptops, but it's bad on phones. Regardless what New York State did or did not do with cell phones, is that the students, who are the primary objective, use their phones. And we want to make all that data as readily accessible to them as humanly possible, because they're the end user.
Yeah.
So, you
And
know.
the parents are the end users too,
Yeah,
right?
well, definitely a lot of grades, and
Yeah.
maybe a few more grades should be.
But I think everyone now, I should say, most people use this, you know, on a daily basis, way before they use this. So I think from that point of view, just getting the information, because we can't have a discussion on it tonight. We don't, like you said, what does it
No.
do and what does it cost? We don't
But I
know,
want
but I
all
think.
the
Yeah.
options, like including like.
Well, that's why I want to be clear that it's, the board comes into it as a financial obligation. Which one is, that's more administrative of which one we're using and working with the staff and staying with it. So the board does not pick which one we use. The board says, yes, we approve putting that much finances towards
Right,
it.
we would want to know what we
But
were
you
getting for
should
the
be
money.
informed of what it is, what it does. And you know, one part I'd start with is just from the survey of the negative aspects, current one we're using, what are your plans? Are you improving this? Are you working it? Are you in a testing thing where you're going to release an option next month or next year?
Well, I mean, my
Yeah.
eldest is in ninth grade, and the parent portal has been the same since I've at least started
Oh,
at the
it's
school. So
been there for a
I suspect
while.
that there's probably maybe not any plans, but it's worth asking.
Yeah.
But I mean, understanding the options, understanding the staff's feedback
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, on things that they like or don't like. I mean, we have some responses, but, you know, to engage them, which I'm sure Pete would, but I mean, it'd be good to see what the options are, what the pros or cons are, what's aidable, because I feel that we're not on the,
They're all
industry
aidable about
best.
it, pretty much the same rate, just so you know.
Okay.
It's just the cost of the program because we get them all through BOCES. The other one is the support for it, because Infinite Campus is not supported here at our local Winnie-Rick. We'd have to go out of Rochester. But again, getting ahead of it, just because we
Yeah.
look
So-
at it a lot, I have a little bit. But what I'm hearing is the board wants me to look into it, so
Yeah.
I'll start putting together a plan to look into it and see what's out there and what changes are there, and is this a good time to switch?
Yeah, that's what I say, so the board in general agrees that at least get the information.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. See if there's something better out there, yeah. And then if there is, form a plan how to get there. Okay.
Thank you for conducting that.
Okay, we'll now
Thanks
move
for the
on
work.
to the superintendent report.
I don't feel like talking, John. This is about the budget, so I hope I'm at the right spot. Yeah, budget
Yep.
presentation, so John will be given an update of the budget, what little bits of information we've gleaned from the governor, her state of the state of where she's going.
Thank you. And of course, it's only been 3 weeks since we last did one of these, so in some respects, not much has changed, but then we do have some more information, and we're trying to fit a few more pieces together as we go along. And we're still very early. February's pretty early in the process still, so a lot more information still to come. Let's go through those, because we've seen these all before many times. Reserve plan, state aid, the tax cap calculation, which is not complete, but I have some ideas where it's going to be. Revenues and expenses. Reserve plan, especially, we like to go through this at least once or twice or more a year with the board, just to kind of, because the state wants us to do that and make sure you're aware of these things. These are the reserves on the far left, actual how we finished last year. These are reserves levels we had in these areas. This is in the financial report that you have access to at the end of the year as well, so the same numbers. But I'd like to just show the reserves that we have. All of them are pretty reasonable amounts in there. Of course, the biggest one here, capital reserve. The public voted on a capital project to access this capital reserve for money for that project, so we'll be doing that. That's why it kind of comes out down the road. And then we try to, you see in the future years for capital reserve, we try to fund that with $1 million every year if we can. So every 5 years to 7 years when we do a project, we can have the local portion ready to go and we don't have to increase taxes for that project. Here's some of the other reserves we have. Unemployment, employee benefits reserve, and these reserves can be used to offset budget if we need to, and we do every year use some of these reserves to kind of fund the budget. If we have a good year and we don't need them, we don't use them. But they're there if we need them. And that's the kind of purpose of these reserves is if an area like a teacher retirement system goes up dramatically in 1 year, we can access the reserve to kind of fund that, get us through that little peak of expense, and then get back to normal life later on down the road. The state, the governor gave her executive budget proposal on January 20th, shortly after our last meeting. At that meeting, she outlined some of her ideas for education. And when she talked about foundation aid, she said that districts like ours would receive the minimum increase of 1% for next year. There's over 400 districts in New York State. Majority of districts are getting this information that they're going to get 1% next year. So that's good in that we have a lot of districts with the same problem. Obviously, this doesn't match the inflationary rate that's posted at 2.63%. Well, we'd like to get at least that on foundation aid. That would, I think, make sense. As a result, we really feel that we're not adequately funded with that budget proposal she's putting forth.
John?
Yes.
With even just not something I want to hold you to exactly, but if you look at this, if inflation's at 2.63, the target Fed rate is 2% in a perfect world. If they continue to fund at 1%, and we'll be optimistic and say inflation goes up by 2%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The difference is made up then by tax levies and tax share.
I want to interrupt you there.
There's other ways to do it.
Well, I want to interrupt there. Years and years ago it was that way. Now that they have a percent in there for a formula where you need greater than 50%,
right?
It's not made up. It used to be made up years and years ago. Not anymore. We fall behind.
Well,
we're governed by a tax calculation, so we can only increase our taxes by so much.
And that's where I was going with it. At some point, you don't have to be a mathematician to figure out this is going to cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of how many years out that is?
Well, you might look farther in his presentation and think it's now, but
okay. That's what
some things are hitting us. There's a lot of things going on, and
that
sleepless nights sometimes.
That comes into a quote I had from Dr. Robinson, who's another superintendent district. The budget's easy. It's math. You get so much revenue, that's all you can spend. Make cuts, do whatever you want to hit the same numbers so they match. That's easy. The hard part is it's not about the numbers. It's about the children. It's about the education. It's about their experience. So what are you willing to give up? And that's where everyone's different in a school district to make the numbers match. And what aren't you willing to give up? And that's where it comes to the key point. What aren't you willing to give up for the students? That's the real important thing. We have numbers up here, but it's about the stories of the children. You just had the ones from the high school come in with the polar plunge. We didn't have that program years ago, and you hear how it's growing for Unified Sports and Unified Club. Do you want to stop it from growing? Do you want it to go backwards? What about the other ones? What about these opportunities we've given children?
And then balancing that back against the community's ability to pay for it.
Correct, exactly, because everyone is in a different financial situation in the community.
I know we're not on the slide yet, but is there still discussion or any discussion going on in regards to grants for funding the SROs for our district or any district? Has there been any discussion?
There hasn't been anything that comes out to fruition anywhere.
Okay.
I wish I could say there was, and I'm sure across the state, there's probably some places that are tapping into something. Our wealth precludes us from a lot of grants we've tried. We actually had a couple years of grant writing service. We hired in because we're like, well, maybe we're not doing a good job. Let's get an expert in here. They couldn't find anything either.
So I think that, well, first off, I understand that Iroquois does not have a grant writer. Is that accurate? Or do we have a grant writer on staff?
We do not have a grant writer on staff. We are part of a level 1 COSER at Erie 2 that we tap into grants like the Sandy Hook Say Nothing, that anonymous reporting system. That's funded by a grant. Along with other schools. There is a level 2 there that you could buy into. But you spend so much money per hours.
Is that like a service?
It's a service, yeah.
Okay, level
It's a service,
okay.
yeah.
Because I think that, I mean, would it be fair to say that most districts probably have at least somebody on staff that knows how to write grants and knows how to go find money?
I would say most districts do not. In Erie 2, of the 27 districts, I think there's 3 or 4 that are in the level 2. I'm going to say there's 1 or 2 of the 27 that might have a grant writer part-time on staff, not a full-time writer.
I mean, because we're all going to have to buckle our belts a little tighter and get creative with what we have, right? But also be creative about going to find money where we could potentially get it. And I understand your point where, like, everyone's like, well, for electric buses, there's grant money. But, yeah, we could apply for grant money all day long for electric buses.
We did. We didn't get it. Well, we got part of it, not enough of it.
Yeah. You know, we're not going to get something like a different school that's not as wealthy maybe as Iroquois is. And I say wealthy in the general sense, just, you know.
Yeah, it's relative.
I think that finding grant money and uncovering every single stone, and like, it wouldn't be a full-time job, but I think that we should have somebody on staff that knows how to write grants. To me, it seems very strange that we don't have anyone. I don't think it's something that would require a full-time position or a part-time position, but somebody on staff that if we're, you know, John says.
We contracted somebody from the outside who helped us about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So we tried that, and they had somebody who would help us and be scouring and looking for those things out there. And what they find a few things the first time through, but it dries up pretty quick. And they didn't find enough to generate enough to have a full-time person on staff. Like,
I'm not suggesting full-time.
Yeah.
But like for the grants that we've applied for in recent years, did Mary Jo write some of them, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Recov's grant for mental health, that was a 2-year grant we got. That's a state grant. Every year we apply for what are their grant allocations, Title I, Title II, Title IV, 611 and 619, which are special education. And we get UPK, which is a grant, but we have to apply for it every year. So we do that all ourselves. We handle all those applications ourselves and do those every year.
All right. So
outside of that, there's not a lot of other stuff.
So let me break it into 2 baskets for you. You have the ones that are title grants or state grants that are part of the budget that have parameters that the state or federal government put around them. We apply for all those that we can apply for. We know about them all. The information comes out. We get everything we can there. We already do that. The other basket of grants is ones that are specialized grants, I'll call them. Companies do them. They're looking to do for that. And most of those of how they're geared, that's why we hired that service in there. We paid them less, than a full-time employee. But why we went that route rather than a single person is it's a company. So they have greater resources at their disposal. You don't hire a doctor just for you. You go to a practice because other people help pay for their salary. But they have this expertise. And they couldn't find it. Now, I'm not poo-pooing and saying don't do it. I think hiring someone on part-time just to work part-time at Iroquois you wouldn't get someone who has if you got someone who has a lot of expertise, they're probably retired and looking for something to do because they're bored. But in order to get someone good, you would have to go with a service that's out there constantly scouring grants, that every day they're spending, looking at the grants, looking at what's out there, looking at what's at the companies. There's websites that you can go and search on them and see what they do, like search engines that are just geared around that. And while, like, I hate to say I have some insight on this, my wife's job is a grants writer at Erie too. So I'm always talking about this at home. So what grants are there? What grants have you seen that we could apply to? She sends us stuff, because she knows I'm always asking, and I think she likes me. And so that's why, like, for our flag football, we got a grant to get that started. So there are grants that we've had opportunities that go in there. They're just very few and far in between and don't give us the revenue that other districts get from them. So am I saying, no, don't look into it? I'm saying, yeah, we do look at it. We just have to be prudent knowing where we are in comparison. So I'll ask East Aurora, because they're closest, what grants have you gotten? What are you looking at? So what are the other ones they found? These are general discussions. We always say, I don't know if John does it with other business officials, but we're always asking those questions because, number one, if they found a grant they could get and they're a like school to us, that's great, because now if they got it, we can copy their grants. Like Carol White is one of those. Another district, we were able to get that when I was working there. Tried to get that here. Has to do with athletics. We tried 3 or 4 years. Just couldn't do it. And that's from, having experience writing it and being successful. We just never met the criteria of this is the line. It's like making it advanced class. Here's where you have to be above this line. We're not above it. So I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying we keep trying to go down that consistently.
And the Carol White I received at another district, that's really was going towards poor rural districts that, combined wealth ratio was very low, and that's what they were targeting with that money. It was hard to get for a district like us.
And that's why we joined with the BOCES at the level 1, because by being in that group, we're in a group with people that have lower wealth, and that's how we're able to tap into some of those grants, because we're a partner, so we take ours and theirs, average them together, and now we make the threshold that we can get some things.
I think we probably should let John get back to his conversation, but I think it's something we should
Of course, yeah.
discuss, because we're going to have to get creative.
Yeah.
We should always be creative, but I think it's just something that someone in the public had asked me, so I thought it was an appropriate time to ask, so.
But you can go back to them and tell them we do look, and we're going to keep going, and we can try to find other stones.
And next week, Heather Becker and I are traveling to Albany, and we're going to chase down Governor Hochul and tell her what we need. So we'll listen intently to the rest of your presentation and see what we can do.
John, make sure we got bail money for those two.
Yeah.
They chase down Governor Hochul.
We might need bail money, so.
The other thing why there's some sleepless nights, 1% increase on this fund, and this is roughly, I think, 1/5 of our revenue is this foundation aid, so it's a significant piece. But 1%, I don't know if you follow utilities much. I do, because I have to. But utilities like electricity are just going crazy. With the weather situation we're in right now for the last 3 weeks and going forward, electricity last year, say it's about 10 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. Last year it went up to 22 in the winter, and we were like, oh my God, that's almost double. January, a couple days in January, hit 75 cents per kilowatt hour.
Is that with or without the smart reader?
Huh?
Is that with or without these smart readers that are getting rolled out?
Right, but electricity,
I know.
but what you'll find is that electricity is driven by natural gas, because most electricity actually is produced by natural gas and not by whatever means. So that's driving that, and we just saw, a couple weeks ago, a spike, and I don't want to tell you what our January bill is right now, because it would make you cry. But it's
make you feel
a huge
good about
number.
yours.
It's a huge number. So we're watching that, and then what do you do with that for next year when you try and plan the budget? I'd love to put a lot more money in electricity. How do I do that when 1% is coming in on the revenue side? So that's the things that's really hard to deal with. And we haven't got to the natural gas yet, because that's coming soon too. But electricity really happened really quickly. And we'll probably all see that on our personal home bills as well, coming up.
No, thanks.
Yeah. Expense-based aids, she proposed the same reimbursement rates as the year we're in now, so again, doesn't include inflation or any kind of additional money in expense-based aids, but still, it's good that she's going to hold those.
Oh, thinking of grants, just so you know, the solar panels that we've all put on triggered it with electricity.
Yes.
Because we put solar panels on Marilla Middle School and the auxiliary gym. That was grant money we used for that.
Yeah.
So we were able to get some grant money there.
And with these rates, it looks like a great move right now, because those are worth, the production those things are going to have is much more valuable than we even thought. So that was a great thing to have to offset some of those things for next year as well. She did propose, I think she's just continuing the free breakfast and lunch that she started last year, so that will continue. Pre-K, she did have some ideas for increasing the per-student allocation, which is great. That would help because at 50, we have two different grants for UPK. We have the regular, we call it regular UPK, and we have expansion UPK. Expansion means we add some classes, so they gave us $10,000 per student. What she's proposing is doing all the grants at $10,000 per student instead of $5,400 a student. That would be great because that helps offset a lot of expenses. The $5,400 a student really kind of covers teacher benefits. It doesn't really cover the aid that's in the room, the supplies they use, and all those kind of things. So that's good news, I think, for $10,000 per student, and that will help. Again, that's funded by a New York State Grants Finance. It's not part of the general fund, but it'll help offset expenses in our general fund. And those are the classes we have right now, and we propose to continue those same classes, 2 at Marilla, 2 at Wales, 1 at Alma for next year. This slide we've been showing a lot just to show that this is where you see that the foundation aid and our tax levy increase has not kept pace with CPI, and that's why we're kind of going backwards a lot of times, like you said, Jim. So again, no real changes there. And that 1%, that's the thing that's open to debate, the 1% on foundation aid, that's when you go to Albany, you can talk about that 1% and how we can get it up to 2% or 3%. That's what we're looking for. And we may not know the answer to that question until April 1st, when the budget is typically due, or in the last couple of years, it's pushed into the first or second week of April. Tax cap calculation, that's, again, this controlled calculation that we use to determine what our tax levy increase is. We have a growth factor that's smaller than usual. It's 1.0037. We've had years where it's 0.6, 0.7, double what it is now. So that keeps the calculation a little lower than usual. The CPI increase, again, we said 2.63. That's where the cap comes in. If it's above 2, it stays at 2, that part of the calculation. So we use 2% there. So right now we're calculating around a 2.1 to 2.5. It's going to be in the lower range this year. You can see where our history was in the past. We had a couple years that went a little over 3, but we don't see that happening in next year.
Yeah, and that 2% growth factor, that's another thing you guys can argue about when you're down there. Where'd you get it from? Like, did they just pull it out of the air? I mean, average CPI is 3.5, I think, over last 60 years or whatever it is. Like, why 2? You pretty much guaranteed you're not going to keep up with inflation.
And the reason probably is because 2% was very normal 6-7 years ago when they came up with the calculation.
Yeah,
that was a pretty
great.
normal rate. It wasn't really changing very much, but the world's changed quite a bit, as we know. The budget we're working on right now, we're going to retain RTI staff, academic lab, after-school assistants on the main campus, athletics, student clubs. There's a lot more than this, but I'm just trying to show you the highlights of things that we definitely want to retain going into next year, including school resource officers. Staff counselors, we have a TOSA teacher on special assignment supporting reading. Additional support for professional development that we added into the budget last year to kind of help with those all those activities we want to do during the summer and train our staff, and keeping the family support center as well. One of the areas we look at a lot is retirement expenses. So the good news is here we're actually seeing that percentage that we pay for every dollar of pay we give to a teacher retirement system person. We have to pay the state 9.59% this year, or 9 cents 10 cents per person, per dollar we spend. That's going to go down a little bit next year, so that's good. It's a decrease on one of our expense areas. Of course, raises, pay goes up, so our contribution still kind of stays flat, but that's good news because we've seen years where that rate has been 18, 19, 20%, and it kind of jumps very fast sometimes, so that's a great thing to have that being flat or going down slightly. Same thing for the employer retirement system. There's a contribution rate, but there's several tiers with different rates, but we're seeing, again, the same kind of thing where it's going to be pretty flat going into next year, so that's very good news. We continue to watch those utilities, of course, because that's a big thing right now. And then health insurance, when we looked at that, we don't see a significant change. We're working with a great company that guides our self-funded program. We put our pharmaceutical portion out to bid a couple of years ago. We had great results with that. They're continuing to focus on the GLP-1s and all the new medications coming out to make sure we're doing things correctly there and trying to not see some significant increases that some other districts are seeing in the 10, 20% increases on health insurance. We're controlling that pretty well at this time. So very early stage, when we look at our revenues, we're seeing only a total increase of less than 1%. Again, we're levy going up. I'm estimating about 2.13 right now, but everything else is kind of staying relatively flat. So that's the downside, I guess. On the estimated expenses, we're still pretty controlled. 2.8 is not bad as our overall expenses going to next year, 2.8%. When you're talking about our utilities, our benefits, all those kind of things, pay raises, it's a pretty reasonable increase, I think, and we've had that kind of increase over the last number of years, but it still leaves us with a gap. Right now, it's $1.2 million. Created this presentation last week, so we get it out to you early. That number's around a little under $1 million at this point, so we're working at it. We'll continually be working at it, having meetings, going through the BOCES budget, looking at utilities and those kind of areas. So I'm not in a panic situation right now. We are bringing that down, and we'll continue to work at it.
And year in, year out, we do this, and through, as Heather has said, being creative and intelligent, we continue to close, that gap.
Yeah.
But this is the question I asked earlier. This illustrates that point. Eventually,
yeah.
You can't keep on doing this.
Yeah.
And you can't, Doug's point, what I was getting to, you can't tax your way out of it either.
Yeah.
So I just think that everyone needs to know two things, that, the administration and the board and the public were very aware of this, and we tried extremely hard to be creative. But, it's the same thing. If you're looking down that tunnel and you see a light, right now it's a freight train, not the end of that tunnel. And this isn't going to change. And remember, even that 1% increase and those things you're talking about are the governor's ideas at this point. Mm-hmm. It hasn't even gone through yet. So it's just at this point, everyone's got to be aware of it and understand, what that number means.
And if we get to a point where in coming months as we go, if we get to a point where we got to make some really hard decisions, we'll include you guys in that, what decisions are we're thinking of. If they really are going to impact things, impact programs, we'll let you know about that.
John,
right now, we're trying to deal with things without doing those kind of major changes.
John, with the new teacher contract coming this year, how does that affect the projected budget?
We have to build an estimated amount, yes.
Yeah, we don't know yet because we don't know what they're asking. So if they come in at 1%, well, they'll agree with the governor, we'll be all set. I have a feeling that's an unrealistic number. If they come in with double digits, and all it comes down to, what do you say yes to as a board? What parameters? Usually when you negotiate, there's three things you talk about: time, money, power. Well, if you get more time from someone, usually you're willing to give them more money. So how do things balance off in it? But yet there's also a realistic world we have to live into. No matter what we think, we have to stay competitive in the market. So you can't price yourself out of the market either, but you can't bury the taxpayers to stay in the market.
Thank you. We do intend to do a bus purchase proposition, as we always do, proposition number 2, to buy diesel buses, not going electric, so everybody knows, we're not doing that this time. We are still in the study of electric. We're doing a New York State supported with money to pay for our initial study of power that's coming into our district, and feasibility is what they're looking at. It's really the first hurdle you have to really go through to this whole process. So we're working on that now. But these are buying full-size diesel buses. One this year will be, of the full-size buses, will be with a wheelchair lift. It's just something that we're seeing more need for as we go forward. Instead of sending 2 different vehicles to one activity, we can just send one in this case. So I think that's going to be a help with staffing and bus drivers and making most use of the drivers we have. And then one cutaway, smaller bus that we use for typically special education purposes. Again, those are big numbers, I know, but that's where prices are for buses nowadays. And again, this is a separate proposition because we would borrow for this separately. It has nothing to do with the general fund budget. This is a separate borrowing we do to pay for these buses. It would be at the most $866,000, but typically we have a bunch of vehicles that we're trading in that offset that price. So that's the max it could be. And we have our contact information here. March meeting will provide an update on the stuff we've heard so far and keep going. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
The next piece I have is just a real quick question. Erie 2 BOCES is looking to do a capital project. With their capital project, they've, from their building condition survey, they're talking about parking lots, sidewalks, mechanical, replace outdated equipment, ventilations, improve outdated facilities, full renovation of programs. If it sounds like I'm not well versed in it, I'm not, because this is the Erie 2 thing. They're looking for the project to be somewhere between 50 and 60 million. Why I bring it to you is because they are looking to do it where they need a BOCES-wide vote. What does that mean? It's not the taxpayers, but every single board has to vote for BOCES to do the project. My question to you is a very simple one. Would you like them to come and present to you so you have more details, so when you vote on it, you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's move into recognitions. Well, you might have said no, and I'm like, oh, okay. Our school is on the 2025 AP Honor Roll, so congratulations to Chris, and because he was here, but so he could pass that along to all the students and teachers in the high school for all the work they did with that. Athletics, Fall Scholar Athlete winners, Chase, Layla, Justice, and Sophia, they were for cross country, field hockey, football, and swimming. Honorable mentions in swimming, Emmeline and Elizabeth. And then for swimming, tennis was Georgia, Gianna, and Hazel. Sienna, Claire, and Emma were girls volleyball. Jet, Andrew, Vincent were boys volleyball. Bryn was cheerleading. Alex, Tyler, Timothy, Nicholas was football. Addison, girls soccer. Thomas, Hannah were cross country. Brooke, Nate, Nick, Wyatt, Brett, Eddie, Carter, Jack, Ian, and Reese were boys soccer. And this past week, there was the middle school drama club. Unfortunately, I was sick and couldn't make it, but Dawn attended and said it was absolutely phenomenal. I got another thumbs up out there, so congratulations to all those students. Keep your outfits, because you could come down and do a special performance for me, because I do not like missing them. Technology department, cardboard arcade. On Friday, they traveled to the Key Bank Center, and the accumulation of the project that began back in October, and 2 teams from Iroquois who walked away with awards, pitch excellent, and technology integration. So congratulations to them. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on to recognition of guests. Dawn, do we have any? Okay. Okay, now we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Before we do that, Dave, you have new employees?
Yeah, so actually in the audience tonight, We have our new principal at Elma Primary, Miss Katie Goldman, and her son. Thank them for, hanging out and staying up late with us tonight. So,
And he's been very well behaved. I'm sorry it's been taking so long for him. Way to meet me, right? The first day is to make you sit here forever.
so welcoming her, and we also have John Mariacker, who's joining us as a bus driver. And I want to thank Sharon Gingrich and Darlene Cusera for their retiring and riding out to the sunset, for thanking them, being a bus tenant and bus garage driver for us here at the district. So that's all I got.
Well, special news today that Mr. Sullen did pass his permit to become a bus driver, so he can help out there.
Let me explain this real quick. So I don't know if so I actually, in past life, I got my CDL, bus garage, found out about that and said, well, why don't you get your endorsements to do passenger and student. So me and Mr. Nagel went out this morning and I passed those two. So my goal is to get it, and then if they really, really need me someday, they can throw me in.
So we're pushing him?
So just trying to help out.
So if he's not in the office, he's training.
Thank you. So that's now the discussion for this is 11.01 through 18.06. The basic purpose of the consent agenda is to act upon routine matters in an expeditious manner. Items placed on the consent agenda are determined by the board president and vice president in cooperation with the superintendent, and are those which are considered common to the operation of the district and normally require no special board discussion or debate. Board members have the ability and the responsibility of reviewing the consent agenda ahead of time. A board member may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed and inserted at an appropriate place on the regular agenda. The president will present the initial motion followed by the request for a second motion. Is there any request to withdraw any item? Is there any request to add any item? Okay. I'm going to make the motion to approve the consent agenda 11.01 through 18.06.
Can I just ask one question?
Yep.
Before we approve? So for 1801, for the 2026-2027 instructional calendar, someone from the public asked me how we decide our dates. Labor Day is very late this year, and we're starting after Labor Day. Some school districts are starting before Labor Day, which gives them more break time. So we take ECSB or BOCE's lead on the calendar?
That particular question is answered by it's a contractual obligation.
Okay. And then I would like to, at 1804, I love the fact that our TOPS market, education money is increasing, so just a reminder for everyone who shops at TOPS to keep that going, because that did go up. I don't know, I know it's not a lot of money compared to what a school needs, but anything helps.
But it helps. It helps.
It does.
So, that's great. So, and then you're doing it through 1806?
Correct, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
So I made the motion. Is there a second? Heather Becker, all in favor? Shows 7 in favor, 1 absent, none opposed. Now we got to flip.
I think you meant 6.
What did I say?
You said 7 voted yes, 1 is absent.
Okay, I added another board member to the board. I apologize. Thank you for the correction. Now we're going to take on 19.01, which is the appointment of Andy Jacobs to lifeguard. So I'm going to make the motion for that. Bob seconds. Can I have a vote for all in favor? Okay, so now I got to do the math even harder. We have 5 in favor and 1 abstained. Heather Jacobs abstained. Okay, do we have any guests? Okay, now I'm going to ask for another executive session. So I'm going to make the motion for an executive session. Can I have a second?
For the purpose of
discussion
of personnel.
For the purpose of discussion of particular personnel issue. Second by Heather. All in favor? There. It shows 6 in favor, none opposed. Just so the public knows, when we come back from an executive session, we will just adjourn the meeting. Nothing else will be discussed. So, thank you. We're back from the executive session. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn at 9:32. Can I have it seconded by Henry? Sorry, all in favor? Okay, 6 in favor, 1 absent. We are adjourned.